You want to talk about a Fed power grab? You want to talk about a charade? Let's talk about January 6th. I'm not making any accusations. I'm sorry, I didn't say it right. Let's talk about January 6th, the worst insurrection and terror attack in the history of the United States, January 6th. So what we're told is that these Trump supporters showed up and they killed a bunch of cops and they nearly took down the government. None of that was true. The worst they did was cause some property damage, and the horn hat guy danced around the Capitol. But now we're learning the feds may have had an active role in promoting the riot at the Capitol. Senator Ted Cruz yesterday was grilling the FBI in a Senate hearing, and he had a very simple question. This should not be complicated. It should have been a very simple answer. Did any FBI agents or FBI informants commit acts of violence on January 6th?
Ms. Sandberg, I want to turn to the FBI. How many FBI agents or confidential informants actively participated in the events of January 6th?
Sir, I'm sure you can appreciate that I can't go into the specifics of sources and methods.
Did any FBI agents or confidential informants actively participate in the events of January 6th? Yes or no?
Sir, I can't answer that.
Did any FBI agents or confidential informants commit crimes of violence on January 6th?
I can't answer that, sir.
Did any FBI agents or FBI informants actively encourage and incite crimes of violence on January 6th?
Sir, I can't answer that.
Sir, I can't answer. Sir, I can't answer. Sir, I can't answer. But notice the way she didn't answer changed. And this does remind you, I don't say it just because he's a friend of mine and we host a podcast together, does remind you that Cruz is a very good lawyer. Because you would think that the first question he would ask is, did the FBI have any involvement in January 6th? That's the basic question to establish, but he doesn't. The first question he asks is, how many feds were involved? Right? He's sort of talking past the sale here. He's assuming that the feds certainly were involved. And then he's saying, so how many? He says, how many FBI agents or confidential informants were involved in January 6th? And what is her answer? She says, sir, I can't reveal sources or methods. So she's accepting the premise that the feds were involved in January 6th. Because if no feds were involved, if the FBI really did not have its fingerprints on January 6th, then she could have just said we weren't involved. That's fine. That doesn't compromise any agents in the field. That doesn't compromise any informants. That's a very simple answer. She certainly can give that answer. We were not involved. But she doesn't. Because he assumes that they were, and she allows him to get away with it. She allows him to play that trick because he had a good hunch and he was right. So she says, I can't reveal sources or methods. He goes, okay. Then he goes back. He says, were there any involved? Humana. I can't answer that. Yeah, you can't answer it because you were involved. That's why. It's a big yes. It's a big, fat yes. So the question then becomes, what was the FBI's involvement? Was the FBI's involvement just to gather some information? That's a totally legal law enforcement tactic. Or was the FBI's involvement to incite violence? Was the FBI's involvement not just to gather information about what was already happening, but was the FBI's involvement to actually cause these events to happen in the first place? Because the FBI is not allowed to do that. No law enforcement agency is allowed to do that. Slight parenthetical here. I know Senator Cruz got in a lot of trouble last week because he used a dumb talking point from the Democrats to describe January 6th. And a lot of people wrote into me and they said, Michael, when are you going to toss this guy overboard? When are you going to call out your friend Ted Cruz? When are you going to go after your friend Ted Cruz? And I certainly haven't on the show. I was on C-SPAN over the weekend and I addressed it because I was asked about it on TV. But I'm happy to address it here, which is I generally don't endeavor to throw my friends under the bus. I don't think anyone should endeavor to throw their friends under the bus. There are some occasions where someone is doing something that is so bad that you've got to call them out for it, or if they're unrepentant, or if they're going down a really bad path, of course, then you have an obligation to justice to say, hey, this is wrong. And maybe you do it privately at first, but then you can do it publicly afterward. But if someone makes a mistake and then recognizes it was a mistake and the wrong thing to do, and then acknowledges that publicly, I don't think that conservatives or anyone else has the obligation or even really should just throw someone under the bus in a graceless way. Because my argument at the time, I thought, look, not just because the guy's a friend of mine, but because as a member of the conservative movement, Ted Cruz has been a good senator. He's been one of the most stalwart, one of the most conservative, one of the most effective senators we've got. So if he says a dumb thing and he acknowledges it and he says, yeah, whoops, I shouldn't have done that, that was dumb, we're just going to throw him overboard? I don't. That to me doesn't seem like a very effective political strategy. If that's the new standard, that anytime any of our fighters out there do anything dumb or bad or make any mistake, that we're just going to say, okay, you're gone, outer darkness, wailing and gnashing feet, see you later, then conservatives are never going to be able to practically accomplish anything. But I don't know. I thought, okay, am I just being too nice to my friend here? Am I showing too much grace here? Has Ted Cruz suddenly become a huge squish and he's just completely useless and he's Liz Cheney in a wig or something? And then just a few days later, we see, no, the guy's still one of the most stalwart, right-wing, effective conservatives in the Senate. And how did he do it? Because he nailed the feds on the January 6th thing, specifically on that issue. And then he brought up a very important name. This is a name, maybe you've heard about him on Twitter or on some of the message boards or in maybe some conservative news outlet. But it's not a name that's gone mainstream. Ted Cruz asked, who is Ray Epps?
Who is Ray Epps?
I'm aware of the individual, sir. I don't have the specific background to him.
Well, there are a lot of people who are understandably very concerned about Mr. Epps. On the night of January 5th, 2021, Epps wandered around the crowd that had gathered, and there's video out there of him chanting, "Tomorrow, we need to get into the Capitol, into the Capitol." This was strange behavior, so strange that the crowd began chanting, "Fed, Fed, 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 Fed." Ms. Sandburn, was Ray Epps a Fed?
Sir, I cannot answer that question.
The next day, on January 6th, Mr. Epps is seen whispering to a person, and 5 seconds later, 5 seconds after he's whispering to a person, that same person begins to forcibly tear down the barricades.
So, Miss FBI lady, is Ray Epps a Fed? Sir, I cannot answer that question. Yeah, I bet you can. Well, I bet you can. I think you just don't want to. Cruz goes on. He explains another really strange fact, which is that in the days after January 6th, the FBI puts this guy, Ray Epps, on a most wanted list. His picture there says, if you can find this person, if you can, there were a number of other people on the list as well. If you can find them, any information leading to their arrest, please send it over. And then when they discover one of these people, they slap a big label, arrested, we got him, right? Except for Ray Epps. Ray Epps suddenly disappears from the FBI website. Ray Epps disappears from the FBI website just a day or two after a right-wing media outlet, Revolver News, publishes a report suggesting that Ray Epps is a Fed. All of a sudden, Epps is gone. He wasn't arrested. If he had been arrested, there would have been a big sign that said arrested right on it. He just disappears. Suspect. Is Ray Epps a Fed? I don't know. Regardless of whether he is or not, the FBI has a lot of explaining to do. They're now in total damage control mode, by the way. The January 6th committee and the two squish fake Republicans, Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, are trying desperately in these extremely lawyered, carefully worded, parsing every single syllable statements to insinuate that this guy's not a Fed. The testimony does not seem convincing. Hey, you. It's nice to be with you. Nice to see you. I'm glad we could spend this time together. If you want to spend more time together, ring my bell. That's right. Ring my bell, LL. Ring my bell. You will get the notifications. You can also head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you get your audio podcasts. Subscribe to The Michael Knowles Show, MICHAEL, KNOWLES, space SHOW. See you next time.